Laws are meant to keep society safe, right? But history proves that some laws, or lack of them, used to be downright outrageous. From mailing babies like parcels to drinking literal radiation, people did some seriously unthinkable stuff. Legally. Buckle up, because these aren't just old laws, they're 15 of the craziest, most unbelievable things that were once totally legal. Mailing babies. Imagine this. You're a parent in 1913, and instead of buying your kid a train ticket, you stamp them like a package and send them off through the US Postal Service. That actually happened. With no law explicitly banning it, some parents mailed their children, yes, actual babies, across miles. The most famous case? A 5-year-old girl mailed 73 miles to her grandparents. One kid even went 720 miles for just 15 cents. It wasn't until 1914 that the government finally said, okay, let's stop mailing humans. And you thought your Amazon package was precious. Wait till you hear what people did with infants on farms. Baby farming. Back in Victorian Britain, baby farming didn't involve adorable animals. It meant giving your child to a stranger for cash, hoping they'd raise them well. But many of these so-called caregivers took in far more babies than they could handle, leading to horrific conditions, neglect, and shockingly high infant death rates. For many struggling mothers, this was their only option. Sadly, it became a profitable industry built on silent suffering. Eventually, laws were passed to regulate and shut down these operations, but not before many children were lost. If that wasn't chilling enough, just wait till you hear what kids were allowed to play with next. Radioactive toys for kids. Kids today play with slime or Legos. Kids in the 1950s, they got actual uranium. The U-238 Atomic Energy Lab was a toy science kit that let children experiment with radioactive materials, because apparently glowing in the dark was cool back then. It cost about $50, roughly $640 today, and came with real uranium ore and a cloud chamber to detect radiation. The warning label? Just don't open the sealed jars, that's it. Thankfully, it didn't sell well and was pulled off shelves quickly, but not for safety reasons, just poor sales. And speaking of glowing hazards, guess where else people used to freely light up? Smoking on airplanes and everywhere else. You're flying cross-country and someone lights up next to you, in a pressurized metal tube 30,000 feet in the sky. Welcome to flying before the 90s. Not only was it legal to smoke on planes, but ashtrays were built into every seat and flight attendants handed out cigarettes like snacks. This wasn't just an airplane thing. People smoked in restaurants, hospitals, even pediatricians' offices. It took decades for governments to finally say, hey, secondhand smoke might be an issue. And now, light up on a flight and you'll face federal charges? But wait, this next one proves our legal system was out of its mind. With a drink. Drunk driving was totally fine today. Drunk driving is a serious crime. But back in the early 1900s, it was just another Tuesday night. Before New York passed the first law in 1910, you could drive while fully intoxicated. No breathalyzers, no blood alcohol limits, nothing. Even after that, enforcement was spotty at best. It wasn't until the 1980s that all 50 states finally banned it outright. Today, one beer too many could land you in jail. But 100 years ago, people thought driving drunk was normal, and if you think that's wild, just wait till you hear what people used to legally sell at hardware stores. Selling dynamite at hardware stores need to blast a tree stump out of your backyard? In the 1960s, you didn't call a pro. You just walked into your local hardware store and bought dynamite. No license, no background check, no ID. It was just another shelf item like nails or paint. The danger? Old dynamite could literally explode on touch due to crystallization. After a few horrifying accidents, the US passed the Organized Crime Control Act of 1970, finally putting restrictions on who could buy explosives. Things were explosive back then. But let's talk about something even more shocking. Child marriage. Underage marriage. Here's something truly disturbing. Child marriage was once legal and still is in many US states. Girls as young as 10 or younger were married off, often to much older men. From 2010 to 2018 alone, over 300,000 minors were legally married in the US today. 38 states still have no strict age ban. Globally, some girls are wed as early as 6 years old. The consequences? Lifelong trauma, no education, and legalized abuse. Marriage is supposed to be a choice, yet for many children, it was anything but. And speaking of childhood horror stories, wait till you hear about a health drink that could melt your bones. Radium-laced energy water, Radioactive. In the 1920s, people actually drank radiation, on purpose. Radioactive, a popular tonic, promised to recharge your vitality with small doses of radium. It was sold in pharmacies as a cure for everything from fatigue to impotence. One wealthy man drank 1,400 bottles and literally had to be buried in a lead-lined coffin. His jawbone had disintegrated from radiation poisoning. The FDA finally stepped in, banning radioactive medicine and ending the era of glowing tonics. You thought that was bad? Next up, you could settle lawsuits by fighting your accuser to the death. Yep, trial by combat. Ever been so mad you wanted to settle things with a sword fight? In medieval times, you actually could. Trial by combat was a legal method to resolve disputes, including murder accusations. If someone claimed you were guilty, you could challenge them to a duel. If you won, innocent. If you lost, well, you were either dead or proven guilty. This practice lasted way longer than it should have. England didn't ban it until 1819. Even in the 1800s, a guy tried to legally duel his accuser in court. And if you thought that was medieval, wait till you hear how free immigration once was. Open immigration. Imagine showing up in the US with a suitcase, a dream, and zero paperwork. That's what immigration looked like before 1924. There were no quotas, no visa interviews, no green cards. America encouraged people to move in and help grow the economy. People from around the world came to work, build, and thrive. But then came rising racism and resentment, especially as immigrants outperformed locals. So the US passed the Immigration Act of 1924, which slammed the door shut. Borders closed, quotas arrived, and yet even inside the country, some people were marrying their own relatives. Incest. Let's be real. Incest is one of the most uncomfortable topics out there. But here's the twist. It wasn't always illegal. In ancient Egypt, sibling marriage was common, even royal. In the US, 48 states have banned it. But that means 2 haven't. New Jersey and Rhode Island don't criminalize incest between consenting adults. Ohio only steps in if a parent-child dynamic is involved. Thankfully, marriage between relatives is still banned almost everywhere. But the fact that legal loopholes still exist? Let's just say, family reunions shouldn't require a marriage license. Moving on to the world's oldest profession. Prostitution has been around forever. But once upon a time in America, it was actually perfectly legal. And in some areas, even organized. Before the 1910 Mann Act, sex work was considered just another job, especially for women shut out of other professions. Red light districts thrived, but politicians grew uncomfortable with its visibility, especially with white women involved, and passed laws to protect morality. The Mann Act made it illegal to transport women for immoral purposes, and slowly, prostitution went underground. And speaking of immoral laws, here comes the most horrific one of them all. Slavery. Yes, actual slavery, owning another human being, was once entirely legal in the United States. Until 1865, people of color were bought, sold, and forced into labor with no rights or freedom. Millions of Africans were trafficked, abused, and subjected to inhuman treatment. Even after slavery was abolished, segregation kept Black Americans isolated and oppressed for another 100 years. It wasn't until the Civil Rights Act of 1965 that equality became more than just an idea. And if you thought that was the worst of it, wait till you see what kids were legally allowed to do in schools. Kids smoking at school. In the 1970s and 80s, some US high schools had designated smoking areas for students. Forget about sneaking cigarettes behind the gym. Schools literally made time and space for teens to light up between classes. Cigarette vending machines were common too. No ID, no questions. Just drop in your quarters and puff away. Today, smoking underage can get you suspended. Back then, it was just another recess activity. No wonder anti-smoking laws hit hard in the 90s. But the next one is the real kicker. because you didn't even need a hand to light a cigarette. You could use a shotgun. Kids keeping guns in lockers. We're ending this wild ride with something completely unthinkable today. High school rifle clubs. In some schools, students would bring .22 caliber rifles from home and store them in their lockers. Rifle teams were official school activities, and shooting ranges were part of gym class. No metal detectors, no panic, just casual teenage firepower. It wasn't until school shootings became a tragic reality that these clubs quietly disappeared. From radioactive toys to kids puffing cigarettes between math classes, it's clear the past was wild, reckless, and occasionally insane. But hey, at least we've evolved now. Which of these old legal horrors shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more insane history facts. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.